Welcome to the SAFeTY Chronicles, exploring how to keep people and pets safe from the cycle of interpersonal violence. I am your host, Allie Phillips, founder and CEO of Sheltering Animals and Families Together, the SAFeTY Program, a nonprofit organization working with domestic violence shelters to eliminate the pet housing barrier to safety. As the founder, I have led the global movement in helping domestic violence shelters create on-site pet housing while elevating the criminal justice response to how animal abuse links to crimes against people. I am a former prosecuting attorney, internationally recognized legal expert, and public speaker, award-winning author, and advocate for protecting vulnerable victims. In this podcast, we will explore how and why animals are harmed in the cycle of family violence and the human-animal bond that keeps victims in harm's way with their pets. Guest speakers and I will share strategies for shelters and professionals working to safeguard survivors, why pet-inclusive sheltering is life-saving, and safety tips for those who need help. None of the content will be graphic. If you are in harm's way, please contact your nearest domestic violence shelter or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And this one, I'm going to stray just slightly off the general theme of this podcast, which the theme of this podcast is all about the human-animal bond, how animals can be targeted during domestic violence incidents, and how to find safe housing with your pet. I want to just stray a little bit off topic and talk about if there is going to be an increase in domestic violence. And I'm primarily going to talk about here in the United States because that's where I live. I'm in Michigan. And so I want to start off with, here in the United States, just about 2 weeks ago, we completed our election that encompassed federal, state, and local positions. And I am hearing from friends, and I am seeing extensively on social media an increased number of women, people of color, and those in the LGBTQ community expressing fear of the future and for their personal safety. And I've never seen anything like this before. And so I thought this might be a good topic to address because I want to talk about what you can do to feel safe. Now, the SAFeTY program does not take any political positions, period. The organization does not. And I personally do not share my voting record or any political affiliation because of the work that I do, because I have spent 31 years in the criminal prosecution system. I have been a lobbyist. I still do some lobbying work. And so it is really important for me. And because of the conversations that I have with people, that I remain as neutral as possible. However, because of the negative and the violent tone of rhetoric that I am hearing, I am seeing, primarily by men toward women and people of color and the LGBTQ community over the past several years, and feeling as if we are moving backwards in time where those populations did not have the rights that they have enjoyed recently. I feel now it's important to discuss whether we're going to see an increase in domestic violence here in the United States. And then is that going to create a ripple effect across the world? And I am coming at this topic as a former prosecutor. I have spent 31 years in the criminal prosecution field. And I'm also coming at this as the founder and the CEO of Sheltering Animals and Families Together, the SAFeTY program, where our sole mission is to help domestic violence shelters create on-site pet housing so that anyone experiencing domestic violence has a safe place to go with their pets. Okay, that's what we do here. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about just a little bit of research. And I will tell you, a lot of the research in this field is old and it's lacking and maybe hasn't even been properly validated. So here's what I've been able to learn. So domestic violence increased by about 8% during the initial phases of COVID. And that's according to the Council on Criminal Justice. So during the lockdown and the immediate after effects, there was an increase. Since the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade, so that decision that came down in 2022, reports of abuse involving reproductive coercion have nearly doubled. Now, this is where a lot of statistical analysis and research is lacking because it relies on reports. How many women have not reported? But that was shocking when I discovered that. Now, for crime rates in the United States, we get information from the FBI and Bureau of Justice Statistics, but both are incomplete in the picture of crime in this country because, number one, not all law enforcement agencies report their crimes to the FBI. Number two, BJS, Bureau of Justice Statistics, surveys citizens. They don't survey all citizens. I've never been surveyed, so I don't know who they're surveying. So that has its pitfalls. Number three, the crime rates that are put out every year only address reported crimes and not even all crimes. I remember this was back in 2016 through a coalition of professionals that I still work with to this day. We were able to get the FBI to finally start tracking animal abuse crimes. Okay, that was 2016. Okay, there was no tracking before then. So the third issue is that these statistics only address reported crimes and too many crime victims, especially of interpersonal violence and domestic violence, do not report. Now, how many? We don't know. If they don't report, how do we know? Number four, researchers have found that crime rates have plummeted since the 1990s, but again, it relies on reporting. So, okay. So we know that crime rates are declining, and that's why I'm curious if they're going to go up. So what else do we know? So the US Supreme Court recently criminalized sleeping outside and homeless camps. So in 2023, over 10% of all beds in homeless service agencies were for survivors of domestic violence. 10% of beds for the homeless were for survivors of domestic violence. Also in 2023, the National Domestic Violence Hotline reported a 76% increase in survivors experiencing housing instability. So we know that a large number of domestic violence survivors who time out of a domestic violence shelter or who cannot find domestic violence sheltering with their pets have a likelihood of experiencing homelessness. And now the US Supreme Court and I'm not going to go into that court decision, but they started criminalizing sleeping outside, sleeping in your car, homeless camps. Okay. And then on social media. So I have a lot of different social media accounts on a variety of different apps, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube, LinkedIn. But what I find on social media apps is that there are men hiding behind a keyboard, often with a fake name and no profile photo. They could be a bot that's not a real person, or they could be a real person. And there is an uptick in harassing female creators, female people who post, LGBTQ, people of color, and saying hateful things or threatening assaultive crimes, by saying things like, your body, my choice. And they're saying that in the comments, and they're saying that boldly because they feel emboldened. And I focus that aspect on men because I have not heard any woman express concern about violence coming from another woman. I haven't heard that. It's not to say that it doesn't happen, but I have not heard that. So this is primarily coming from men. So this is happening on social media, and it all depends on the algorithm that you're in. And I'm going to talk about things that you can do to protect yourself, but there is a significant uptick in this. And then the last interesting thing that I want to say, kind of about whether domestic violence is going to be on the increase, is I saw an article coming out of Wales, and Wales recently debated this issue post US election less than 2 weeks ago. And the conclusion was a concern that domestic violence against women and girls in Wales will get worse because of the US election. So, what we do here in the United States does have an impact on other countries. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. I have a bachelor degree in political science, international relations. And so I've always known this, but I realize it may not be widespread that what we do here impacts the world. So while we don't know if domestic violence and interpersonal violence is going to increase or spike in the aftermath of the election, what I fear more is that reports will not be made because of the felony status of the incoming president, and believing that reporting will not make a difference, because if someone can be placed in the highest position in this country with a felony status, why would somebody want to report? And I hope that's not true. And I'm not saying that that's okay, because it's not okay. And I really hope that people still report. So since 85% of domestic violence is directed at women, I would like to offer some advice to women as well as to anyone who is feeling fear, whether you are in a marriage, whether you are in a relationship, whether you are dating, or whether you are, I'm single and I'm super happy being single. Wherever you land, I offer this because I was a trial prosecutor for many years. I was a young female in a male-dominated industry, a misogynistic, ego-dominated industry, and I primarily prosecuted violent male offenders. I had my fair share of intimidation, threats, stalking. I had to be careful walking to and from court. I had to be careful walking to and from my car. I grocery shopped in the middle of the night when grocery stores were less crowded because I didn't want to run into somebody who I convicted, or a family member of somebody who I put their loved one in prison. And I learned very quickly how to hold myself, how to behave so that I could disarm a situation, including one time that I was literally in the stairwell of the courthouse going from my courtroom to the police station. And one of the most violent people that I prosecuted consistently through my career, who basically ran a mafia in town, he cornered me in the stairwell and threatened to kill me right then and there. And I called his bluff. Now, I'm not saying do that, but I received a lot of guidance from police officers on what to do to disarm situations. I called his bluff and he froze, and I was able to get out of there. So let me share some advice. And again, I am not a self-defense expert, but I have been in the field of criminal prosecution for 31 years. I have learned a thing or two, and I will be honest with you, no one messes with me. Okay? No one messes with me. And they really didn't mess with me as a prosecutor. They would threaten me, and then when they saw they weren't getting anywhere with me, they just moved on. Okay, so let me start with this. Number one, while laws vary by state, every state has laws against domestic violence, including verbal abuse and stalking, stalking in person and stalking online. I want you to pay attention to the signs that you may be controlled. And you can Google, what are the signs of domestic violence? And there's a lot of organizations that have that information online. So I want you to pay attention to the signs that you may be being controlled or emotionally worn down. It's called learned helplessness. And if you just get worn down, then you're not going to fight back. And as part of this, do not justify the behavior of another person, even if it's a person in your home that may be doing that. So I recommend talking to a domestic violence professional or a mental health professional to get a second opinion about what you are experiencing to see if it is abusive or working toward an abusive scenario. Number two, I want you to know that you have choices. And if that choice is to leave, I want you to make sure that you know where you're going to go to be safe. Create your safety plan now. Create your safety plan now. If you have pets, you need a pet safety plan. You can go to the safety program website, that's SAFeTY and under resources, there is a download. There is a document that you can download on pet safety planning because if you have pets, you must take them with you so that the threats to harm them will not lure you back, okay? The research is very strong on this. So you need to identify pet-friendly and maybe kid-friendly locations and people, friends and family, anywhere that you can go to for safety if you cannot get to a pet-friendly shelter. Number three, know your state and local rights, especially if your home and other personal property like your car are in your name. Know your rights. Pets, under the law of all 50 states, are considered property, so pets are property. So you need to know your rights. Do you have veterinary records or an adoption record for your pet in your name? Having documents in your name is very important. Okay, so go see what you have. And this taps into my fourth recommendation. Identify if you have a local legal aid clinic or even a law school that has a law clinic. They can offer often free legal advice and free legal representation and potentially can help you if you need it. Now, if you know a lawyer, you can also go to them and ask them to find out, if your home, your car, your pets are not in your name, ask them for guidance on that because every state is different. And, I'm licensed in the state of Michigan, but I don't give legal advice to private people. Okay, so certainly seek out an attorney. Number five, have a bank account and a credit card in your name only, if possible. If you are able to do that, please, please, please do that. Okay, you need your own money. Number six, safely set aside important documents like a passport, a birth certificate, bank records, car title, home title. Put it in a safe place, potentially off-site, in case if you need to leave quickly. Number seven, create a pet safety plan. So you have that download on the safety website to walk you through the things to do. Number eight, really work on empowering yourself. If you are feeling fear or anger, or like you have no choice and you're kind of moving into apathy, that is disempowerment. And it basically sends out an energy signal that you're disempowered and that you can be controlled. So you could be working with a therapist or a counselor, someone at a domestic violence agency, maybe a coach, or connecting with a business that offers maybe free online classes, free in-person classes, or even advice on social media on how to empower yourself. So to segue for a moment, I have one of those businesses. I have 10, I have what I call an energy wellness business. It's called Manifested Harmony. manifestedharmony.com. You can go check it out. I have 10 different certifications in energy wellness, energy healing. I have 4 coaching certifications, and I blend everything together along with my legal expertise. And I help primarily women step into empowerment because you are not, remember when I said a little while ago, basically nobody messes with me because I'm empowered. They're not going to get anywhere with me. So they literally don't even see me to come after me, even online. I don't ever have an issue online. So let me give you an example. I recently held a webinar. I think it was last month. It was in October for the customer service staff at Bumble. So Bumble is headquartered in London, and they are an online dating app geared toward women's safety. And in this webinar, not only did I talk to them about the SAFeTY program, but talk to them about their own self-care, because as customer service agents, they are hearing some very difficult things. And so I told them about the SAFeTY program and how they can offer that as a resource to their clients, but then also talked about their own self-care, because this is what I do. I help people with that. Because when you prioritize your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual self-care, that's what empowerment is. It's not selfish, it's self-care. And what happens when you start taking care of yourself, your vibrational frequency shifts. We all put out a vibrational frequency. And you know that because when you encounter somebody who's negative and just kind of dumps all their problems on you, you walk away feeling worse. Whereas when you encounter somebody who's very positive and uplifting and encouraging, you feel better. That's vibrational frequency. And so when you start taking care of yourself and engaging in self-care, that vibrational frequency shift can start to repel abusive and controlling people. You find more joy. They're not going to tap into that at all. So they're just going to drift away. And I have seen this time and time again. So you can certainly go to my website, manifestedharmony.com, check out all my social media platforms where I offer free information. I offer a lot of free online classes. You can go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/manifestedharmony. There are hundreds and hundreds of classes of simple things that you can do. So that is my number 8 recommendation on what you can do. Now, number 9, if something happens and you are physically harmed, or the verbal abuse is escalating, or your kids are being harmed, or your pets are being harmed, you have options. You can tell a trusted friend or family member and get out of that situation. And when you are ready, notify the police. Because when you do that, that then sets in motion options. You have the options for a personal protection order that can include your kids and your pets. Okay? So you have options, but tell someone that you feel safe. You can even call a domestic violence shelter. Tell them, talk to them. They're going to give you options. So that's number 10, my number 10 recommendation. If you are a survivor or you are currently experiencing domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, S-A-F-E, or call your local shelter. And number 11, if you are a survivor or currently experiencing domestic violence with pets, go to SAFeTprogram.org, click on the shelter listing, and find pet inclusive sheltering. All right, another piece of advice that I have, and this advice is simply for being out in public or being online on social media or maybe a dating app where unknown men to you may behave aggressively, inappropriately, say violent things, say aggressive things toward you. Here are my recommendations. Number 1, surround yourself with like-minded friends and family and be in a community with them. Maybe it's a book club, a cooking club, a dog walking club, a crocheting club. Maybe play, mahjong, or card games. Stay in touch with people daily to create a safety network because community right now is more important than ever. Number two, if you feel nervous being alone in public spaces, remember your nervous energy is going to send out a frequency. We see it in the animal world where animals can sense fear and sometimes they go on the attack. Okay, so if you are feeling fear and nervousness going out in public alone, find someone who can be with you so that you do not send out that energy. Maybe you have a set day of the week that you grocery shop with a neighbor, or you go walking through the neighborhood with a friend, maybe a coworker. You set a time, during the day to go, walk around and get a little bit of exercise. Okay, so just have someone that you can go into public spaces with. Number three, take a self-defense class, but also know your state law on the legalities of carrying mace or other self-defense devices. And this is where you can go to your legal aid clinic. You can even contact a self-defense instructor. They are going to know the laws in your community and in your state. Number four, please, please, please do not engage in person or online with bullies. So let me talk about in-person bullies. If something happens in person, somebody says a comment to you, here's what I would recommend, because this is what I did as a prosecutor. This is what I did even in the workplace around men who were overly aggressive, inappropriate, said things that they shouldn't have been saying to me. And what I would do is I would make eye contact so that they know that I saw them. I don't get emotional. I just look at them and I walk away. Sometimes I would say, are you really sure you want to say that to me? They back down. They back down almost instantly. Now, if it is too aggressive, and I'm seeing stuff on social media that is just horrible, stand your ground, don't get emotional, walk away. And if it is in a public place, find law enforcement, find security if it's in a store, and just let them know. Let them know. We can't allow this stuff to go unreported. There are consequences for this. Number five, if this happens on social media or in a dating app, do not engage. Period. Okay? I need you to promise me, do not engage. Report it to whatever the app is, and then it'll give you the option to ban the person. When you report and ban, it instantly deletes it from your feed. You will not see it, but the app has it. Okay, so don't just delete it. You have to report it, and then it'll give you an option to ban the person, and it'll take that comment right out of your feed. Here's what I'm seeing that's greatly concerning me, especially on TikTok. I see too many women striking back at these bullying comments. They literally highlight their comment and then they make fun of them or try to reason with them. First of all, don't do either of those things. You can't reason with them and don't make fun of them because it can make them very aggressive. Because that's the attention that they seek. By responding, you are literally gassing up their car and they're going to get more mileage out of their behavior. Ignoring, banning, and dismissing them is not only better for your mental health, it deprives the bully of oxygen. You literally suck the air out of the room. And so they're going to go elsewhere. And all women need to do this. So my advice, it's okay to go through your social media list of who has liked your account. Like on Instagram, we don't necessarily have friends necessarily on Instagram. People can like your account if it's public. Same with TikTok. Maybe you privatize your account. If you are a creator, though, we don't do that. So you can go through your list and you can delete and ban anyone that you don't know or who has said anything that makes you uncomfortable. Now, if it's on your Facebook page, it is really okay to do two things. You can unfollow somebody, so you still remain friends, but you don't see any of their posts. Or you can just flat out unfriend them because your social media platforms are your online homes. You get to decide who comes in. Okay, that's a very empowered thing that you can do, but do not engage with these people. So, in closing, I really hope that the aggressive rhetoric calms down. Unfortunately, as a prosecutor and somebody who is very tapped in on social media and seeing what's happening in the world from a political science degree, a law degree, being in this field for 31 years, I don't see it calming down, especially from politicians and people in positions of power. So until then, my advice is do not live in fear, okay? Because fear stands for false expectations appearing real. FEAR, false expectations appearing real. The chances of something happening are slim. Okay? So don't live in fear because that is like allowing abusers to control your life. Don't let them control your life. Don't let them live rent free in your thoughts and in your mind. Instead, live joyfully. Do what you love. Be with people you feel safe with. But also just be prepared, just in case. But don't focus on that. Live your life. But be prepared, especially if you have pets, because there is a lack of pet inclusive shelters in this country. So that is my advice, and I will be watching this closely, and I certainly will come back and report on if I see a change happening. But I really wish for everyone to be safe, be prepared, but live in joy. Live with gratitude for what you have. Yes, things may dramatically change or maybe not. Okay. We are kind of in a wait and see moment, but be prepared and still live in joy. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can post a comment and I will reply. All right. Take care, everybody. If you are in harm's way and need help, please visit the Pet Inclusive Shelter listing at safetyprogram.org, call your nearest domestic violence shelter, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Want to support our efforts and help us keep the Safety Startup Manual free for domestic violence shelters? Consider donating at safetyprogram.org/donate. Your donation saves lives.